calling our meeting to order. At this time, let us stand for our invocation and for our pledge of allegiance. To the makers of the heaven and the earth, we thank you for this precious day. We thank you for the opportunity to serve this great city. We ask you to come in with your wisdom and your knowledge and your guidance, that the decisions that we make will be for the betterment of the city, so this city will prosper and the citizens of our city will be in good health in all areas of their lives. So once again, please be present in this meeting to guide us. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we have the approval of our minutes. We have minutes from October the 11th, 2021, and minutes from November the 1st, 2021, special meeting.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay. At this time, we will have appearances before the board. We have Reverend Leo Woodbury, who plans to speak to council on planting donated trees and ceasefire zoning. At this time, I do not see Reverend Woodbury, so what I would ask, Mr. John Harrington has called and notified us that he will not be here today. But we do have present with us at this time, Mr. Frank Rainwater, Executive Director of the South Carolina Department of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs. If there is no objection, I would like for us to move Mr. Rainwater to this portion of our agenda. He has several other meetings that he must attend. If there's no objections, we will now hear from Mr. Rainwater.
You want me to leave this on, or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, that's fine. All right, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Again, my name is Frank Rainwater. I am Executive Director of the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office. I have with me Mr. Paul Athey to come talk to you about redistricting. The city of Florence is one of about one of about 50 different entities we're assisting on redistricting one form or the other. You are a little bit more hands-on than a lot of other entities we work with, so we're here to kind of talk about some of the data your staff has prepared for us, and we're starting to review to help guide them through the process. In general, though, I'd like to talk to you and educate. I don't know how many of you were here the last time you had to do redistricting, but the law has changed and there are different elements, and I want to make sure we advise council on all the particular elements and things you have to take into account, because you are responsible for a lot of the decisions now, and we'll go forward with that. The major thing about redistricting is trying to respect one person, one vote. That is a requirement of the 14th Amendment and the Equal Protection Clause. And what we mean by one person, one vote is that everybody's voice should weigh about the same as it does in anybody else in the district. And you try to equalize that through the redistricting process. So a community or part of part of a community, their voices weigh just as much as the next community or next district beside them. And a simple example is, let's say you had two districts. One had 100 people and one had 200 people. Well, in the district with 100 people, their voices count more than the district at 200 people, because it only takes 100 people to elect somebody as opposed to 200. Or 100 voices are heard to represent equally as the 200 people. So what redistricting is about in that case, we try to equalize and bring those council districts more in line and put them 150 persons. That would be one person, one vote. So 150 would have the same weight as another 150. In looking at the data that your staff has provided, you have basically very little change in your population growth. When we talk about redistricting, there's a thing called variance, and that after the end of the, or deviation, but at the end of the or at the end of the census, you try to make sure your population is within a 10% variance. That is, the highest district and the lowest district cannot be more than a difference of 10% over the mean. We're recommending that councils draw their districts to less than 5%. But in looking at your census numbers are below 5%. So from a one person, one vote requirement, there's not really a need to redistrict. I mean, you could go in there, it's an option of the council to make changes. But under the court decisions, the courts say if you're more than 10%, you have to redistrict. If you're less than 10%, you may or may not have to, depending upon a host of factors. But you're under 5%. The state Senate just adopted a plan with a 5% deviation, and you're under that standard. So from a one person, one vote requirement, you really don't have to do a lot to maintain your districts as they are. You're good on that point. The one thing that has changed since the last redistricting cycle is provisions of the Voting Rights Act. Prior to this decade, in the last redistricting, that you had to get approval by the Department of Justice after you passed your plan. That was called pre-clearance. The Department of Justice had to sign off on what your plan would be. That is no longer the case. The Supreme Court has ruled that provision ineffective. So once you make your decision on what you're going to do about redistricting, you're entirely responsible. It was nice when you had pre-clearance here, because the Department of Justice gave you some authority that your plan was in place, but that's no longer the case now. So part of my presentation is to make sure councils are aware of some of the technical issues and the general principles. I know I've talked to your attorney several times, and he's well versed. He's been doing this a number of years, and I see on the agenda he's going to talk to you more about some of the legal guidance later. But the emphasis is now is you need to make sure you're aware of what the Voting Rights Act, under the Department of Justice used to look at something called retrogression and looking at percentages of minority communities, but that has changed. There's a whole different standard available now. And when you look at Voting Rights Act issues, the three major principles are you have to look, is the minority community of a compactness, where they are a block, so to speak. Vice versa, if you were looking at, if we lived in a perfect world and every other house was a minority house and every other house was a majority house, there'd be no way to draw a majority-minority district because it would be so integrated. But that may or not be the case depending on your whole county, but you've got to look at that. Then you have to look to see further statistical analysis, do the racial minorities vote as a block? And then you also look to see, is there racially polarized voting where the races vote differently, and that where one race can outvote the other because of the way the districts have drawn. That is a separate statistical analysis your staff will have to do. But it's kind of interesting here in the city of Florence. I mean, looking, you don't have, you have both the white and black population are in the upper 40s. You don't have an overall majority on either race. You have the other races balancing that out. So your staff has to look at some of those detailed issues on how to do that going forward. If you need to redistrict, there are certain other things you have to take into account. You always, the lowest census block, the lowest level of information you can use is a census block. So when you look at the census data, you cannot split a block in two. You also have to make sure your districts are contiguous. And that means any part of your district has to touch every other part of your district. You can't split up your district and have one in the southeastern corner and one in the northeastern corner because that's where your children or something live. Your districts need to be contiguous. Your district should be as compact as possible. I'm sorry if that was a question.
You want to ask now, George?
No, give them that finish.
Okay.
So, I mean, those are some of the criteria. In addition to that, you have to make an informed decision on what are your communities of interest and what are your core districts. Traditional principles have been set by the court is up to the council to decide what is your community of interest. Now, you can't have too many communities of interest because the lines are going to be drawn somewhere. Somebody's community is going to get split. But you have to decide what's the most important part of your communities. When you add or give up people, you try to make sure you like communities, whether that's a school zone, a work zone, a neighborhood. Those are some of the factors there that you have to consider. So if you go down this path, you will have to do that. It is important if you go down redistricting, you have to have a resolution adopted in advance, because what the court cases that I have read, the way I've read those, is that the courts much more prefer for you to defend your plan to state up front what your goals are. What's going to be your deviation? Is it going to be that 10% maximum, or do you want to go to something lower than 10%? What are your communities of interest? You have to make sure you're going to adhere to the Voting Rights Act. You're going to adhere to not splitting precincts or limit splitting precincts and some of these other factors. It takes 2 readings to adopt this. Some cities and some counties will want to have a public hearing before they even present a plan. Some will want to have a starting point, a plan to look at, and then draw public comment on that. So you have some options there. And again, I've been talking with your attorney and with your staff, and they're going through this process. But it was just kind of interesting. You're the first one that I've presented to that you're already at a low deviation. There's not an automatic requirement for you to do much, but there may be other things as you go forward that you have to consider on that. So Madam Mayor, unless there's any other questions, that's all the information I have to share, but I'm happy to answer any questions you or members of council may have.
Well, first, thank you for presenting to us and being here. So I just want to summarize that what I'm hearing, we are already in the guidelines for where we need to be when it comes to the redistricting.
For one person, one vote, yes.
So we meet the one person, one vote already where we're at. So there's no substantive change that needs to get us there. So we're there.
Yeah, you're there.
Okay. Chair recognizes Councilman DeBailey.
Thank you, and I appreciate you being here. This is obviously an education process for all of us, and you're helping to educate us, so thank you so much for that. In addition to the one person, one vote matter that you said, you went on and said there are 3 different aspects. One being the minority community compactness was one, but then you mentioned 2 others, and I'm sorry I didn't quite get those, and so I hope you don't mind my asking you
quite all right.
to go back over those again so I'd have a better understanding. Thank you.
So the courts, in looking at when do you have to draw a minority district, the first thing is you have to look at the compactness. You know, are the voters there together that can make up a substantial part? If they're spread throughout all the city, it's kind of hard to determine that, but you look at the compactness. Then you have to determine, does that minority community vote as a block? It's a little bit different here in South Carolina. We don't have a lot of Asian or Hispanic influence here in this city. In other parts of the country you do. And you have to do a statistical analysis on that. Do the racial minorities vote as a block? What I have been learned in speaking to and listening to the groups is, you know, the African American community tends to vote more as a block than the Asian community and more than the Hispanic community. But that's a statistical requirement. I can tell you that's kind of tough at a city level, because when you get votes, you don't know is the person, you know, what candidate did they vote for. So you have to make some assumptions within a voting precinct. You know who turned out. You have a mix of white and black in a voting precinct, but you don't know what they do. So there's a generalization. You have to go through the statistical report, but at the city level, that starts to be a little difficult. And then finally, you have to look and see, basically discount crossover voters. People don't always vote by race. I mean, people will vote for, sometimes they vote for the better candidate. So that's another thing. If you had a district that had 51% minority, but they were getting beat all the time, and it was not because of crossover voting, it's just because maybe the white population voted as a block, that's an issue for the Voting Rights Act. But if there's crossover voting, then you don't have to draw that. It depends on what those voting behaviors and why people vote.
Is that statistical analysis you're talking about?
That's part of statistical analysis. You have to look at primary data, you have to look at general election, and you can't just look at one. You do have to look at city council races. I mean, you can't use a state house race, you can't use a county race, you can't use a national race, because you're about redistricting the city council. And how people vote at the local level is usually different than how they vote at the national level. So that requires a lot of statisticians, and you have to look at the course of the decade, not just the last election or the current one or whatever. Don't look just at special elections. So you have to take the data as the whole and see where that drives you. And that's a lot of what redistricting is about. is letting the data help you drive the decisions. And the more information you have, the better decision you will come to.
Okay, and those are the second and third parts of it that
Yes.
you described.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Are there any other questions? Chair recognizes Councilwoman Pat Gibbs Highmore.
Mr. Rainwater, first of all, I want to thank you for coming for that information, but I also want the public to know that over the years, over the past 20, 25 years, I have often called on the Rainwater family for various things, and you've never let me down. I just want the public to know that, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you. The ones here in Florence are a distant side on my line. I can take you back to the 1820s to show where we connect.
No, not
so.
that far back.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be such good company then. So.
Any other? Chair recognizes Councilman Braddock.
Yeah, again, I share the thanks for you coming and educating us. With this statistical analysis that you referenced, who would do that? Is that a third party? Is that in-house? Who provides that data? Or where do you get it? Where can you get it?
I mean, you know, you can do it in-house if you have statisticians. You could, you know, university can help if you want an independent third party. You know, our office is able to do that too. I have one of the largest set of statisticians available on that. So it's different sources you can get. It depends on what your preference of your county is, or excuse me, your city.
And I imagine right now with a lot of different areas doing redistricting, that there's a big need for that. But what would be the timeline? Let's say, you know, your firm was contracted to do it, to provide this information. How long would it take to get that information?
It would probably, you mean to do a statistical analysis for the Voting Rights Act? Probably about 3 weeks, something like that.
And is there, I'm sure there's a cost.
No, sir?
No cost?
There's not a cost to us. If you hire or ask the university or somebody at Francis Marion, there may be, but it's just, this is a service we've traditionally done on behalf of our local governments.
Are there any other questions? If not, Mr. Rainwater, thank you. And I'm the only one who's been up here with the 2010 redistricting, so it's good to see that we're already in the format that we need to be to continue the process. So thank you once again for being before us.
Thank you.
At this time, I recognize that for our appearance before the council, Reverend Leo Woodbury is present, so I will call for Mr. Reverend Leo Woodbury to speak with us in reference to the council for planting donated trees and a ceasefire zone.
So we want to say thank you once again, Honorable Mayor Teresa Myers Irvin, and to the entire City Council for an opportunity to come and present before you once again. Because it's by all of us working together that we make progress and we build prosperity for our city. And for those, so I want to apologize first for my tardiness, but I had an unexpected visitor at the church, and it was the type of visitor that you don't rush, and that you want to make sure that you have some interaction with and maybe gain some wisdom. So my 99-year-old Uncle Malachi Woodbury from Marion stopped by the church unexpectedly, and he wanted to talk. So please forgive me, but you know, you don't rush folks like that, right?
You
honor their wisdom, and he actually wanted to give me a little advice before I came here, so that was the delay. But we enjoy working together with the city of Florence, and if you've been watching the news and what's going on with COP25, where we were supposed to be, Loretta Slater and I, in Glasgow, Scotland, but we had a pressing issue, so we turned in our credentials. But you see why we were pushing for a resilience and sustainability commission for the city by what is being said in Glasgow, Scotland, and also with the passage of the infrastructure bill. But this afternoon we come to share two things with you. One is about green infrastructure that I will address, and the other is about our ceasefire zone, which my colleague Anthony Hall of the Democracy Center will address. So first of all, we know that our weather-related disaster and flooding continues to increase and happen more frequently all across the country. We see what's happening now down in Myrtle Beach and Cherry Grove. So for green infrastructure and also dealing with heat islands, which are expected to increase in intensity up to 10 times for outdoor workers, we've been working with the National Wildlife Federation and the South Carolina Wildlife Federation, and we'll be planting 1,000 trees in Marion County in the rural community of Britton's Neck to help mitigate the flooding. But we also have several hundred trees that we would like to plant in the city of Florence. And so we want to work those details out, and the planting will take place. The trees will become available in February. We were hoping it would be December, but we want to work with the city to do that and hope to meet with council people as well as the city manager to work out the details for that donation from New Alpha Community Development Corporation to the city. Also dealing with the increasing incidence of violence, gun violence, across the country in the PD and here in Florence. My colleague Anthony Hall wants to share some recommendations that we would like to make to the city council, and I believe we'll be meeting with the city manager next week, and we'll be able to present a more detailed bunch of recommendations to you guys next week.
All right. All right, Madam Mayor, Council. Throughout the United States and in our city, there have been escalating and numerous incidents of gun violence. The citizens of Florence and surrounding areas are calling together around this issue and have had a series of community rallies and meetings. We have come to the following conclusion, and we'd like to ask the city of Florence to lead in implementing the following recommendations. We recommend establishing ceasefire zones all over the city of Florence and with other entities. A ceasefire zone will be an area in which people gather, for example, clubs, parks, movie theaters, malls, shopping areas, etc. The purpose of the ceasefire zone is not only to reduce incidents of gun violence, but also to lower the number of incidents of innocent bystanders who become injured or become fatalities. A ceasefire zone will cause individuals to only be involved in shooting incidents which they consider or which are allegedly self-defense. Just like drug-free zones, ceasefire zones can limit the number of illegal activities that take place in public settings, period. Working with our state representatives and others, we hope to increase penalties that can result in reduction in gun violence incidents. We know that the city of Florence can only ensure that ceasefire zones are implemented in areas owned and controlled by the city. That's why we are recommending that the city also establish a stakeholders group consisting of nonprofit entities like McLeod Hospital, MUSC, as well as smaller nonprofit organizations, neighborhood associations, businesses, churches, schools, police, and sheriff department. We want to see all over the city of Florence where our downtown revitalizations and neighborhood revitalizations are places citizens feel safe as well as healthy, thereby making our city a place where people not only want to come visit, work, and shop, but a place where people want to reside. And we can grow these boundaries of our city into the 21st century. We hope and pray that the city council will take these recommendations and under serious consideration and move forward towards implementing a ceasefire stakeholder group and ceasefire zone as soon as possible. Thank you for your time, consideration, and your past support.
Thank you, Anthony. And if there's any questions, we'll entertain them at this time. But before I do that, I want to commend the city for the amazing work that we see being done with the forthcoming city comprehensive plan. And as we already mentioned, the Resilience and Sustainability Commission. But this issue around gun violence is a gap that we have seen in the city's efforts to make this place safer, healthier, and more prosperous. And so If there's any questions, we'll take them, but we hope to meet with the city manager and flesh out some more things and present the council with a report within the coming month.
At this time, the chair recognizes Councilman Braddock.
Reverend Woodbury, first and foremost, thank you very much for taking on this issue from a community standpoint. It's a huge issue. Safety in our community is something that I know that we all want, and it really affects Florence as we appeal to other people wanting to move here or do business here, or just our children wanting to stay here. So thank you very much for that. Can you tell me two questions? One, are there other cities who have ceasefire zones? And then two, what are some characteristics, or what is the makeup of a ceasefire zone?
Well, there are cities that we know are discussing, having conversations around this in Chicago and some other places. As far as the makeup, generally we're talking about areas that are populated, that are frequented by the general public, like shopping areas, etc. Much similar to drug-free school zones. However, it would be up to the businesses to determine, or neighborhood associations that have different places where people gather, whether or not they feel that's a ceasefire zone. So we think those are details that are best left to and worked out to the stakeholder group that we're recommending the city form.
And if I may, and then, so what outside of state law, and I guess, what I wanted to ask specifically, if council said that the mall area, that we deem that a ceasefire zone, what would we be stating, or what could we do? I mean, does that mean that, of course, carrying weapons, that is a Second Amendment right, that's also a state right, but what does that do in terms of weapons? Is it heighten the charges, like drug-free zones? We talked about that. You have a heightened charge if you're selling drugs in a school area, then there's different mandatory minimums and different things like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. That's why my colleague Anthony Hall talked about the need for policy change on the state level. And then also, we're not addressing the issue of the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. We're talking about people firing in a ceasefire zone in any incident outside of them being able to legitimately show that it was an act of self-defense.
So at this time, what we could do is we could identify areas that we want to be ceasefire zones, but then it'll be really in part up to the state to create what that looks like. When they talk about mandatory minimums and different things, we'd be relying on the state to actually tell us, what we would be able to do. Is that correct?
That's correct. And then there's also some other things that cities and business entities and communities can take. So increasing the number of surveillance devices that are in the ceasefire zone. And even though it's kind of controversial now, they actually have these things called shot sensors that are being used in cities where if a gun is fired, that sound is instantly picked up and it's relayed to the police department. And so there's some controversy about how well it works, particularly with indoor shootings, but there's additional things that the city and businesses can put in place.
So essentially like a neighborhood crime watch, you would be instituting something in that kind of framework.
Yeah, something like that. But where some people are reluctant to speak up, they have in some communities the saying, sayings that in order to deter people from reporting crime, they say snitches get stitches. Well, electronic surveillance and those devices can't get repercussions or snitches for providing the information law enforcement may need.
Well, thanks again for coming, and thank you for giving us something, that could possibly be a practical way to address this issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Barnes.
Pastor Leo Wilberry, we wanted to thank you for coming, but I attended one of the ceasefire, well, two of the ceasefire rallies, and one question, when is the next one? And also, so that we can continue this partnership in making our communities safer, we want to make sure that we not only address ceasefire, but every shot is a cry for help. And we need to make sure that we are answering the call for help in our community. And so everyone on this council and the mayor, we are all on board with cleaning up our community and making our city a safer place. But if we could find more ways that we can partner, it will not happen with just what you're doing. It's going to take different entities coming in and partnering to bring this thing all the way around. So when is the next?
The next ceasefire rally will be November 20th from, I believe it's
12 to 4 p.m.
12 to 4 p.m. at Levi Park in East Florence. And so every council member has attended at least once, so we invite you to come and to speak, to the community and let them know that we're all on one accord. And as you said, this is the first step, so, in a very big issue. So we also have to address, issues of job training and coming up with alternatives in communities so that people don't feel that the only route that they have to increase in assets and producing wealth is to be involved with illegal activities that, that often are the reason why gun violence occurs. So there's a lot of factors, mental health and other things. So this is really just the first step. And we're hoping by the stakeholder group coming together that we'll have people who can, help to identify and to take those different approaches.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Pat Gibson-Moore.
Reverend Woodbury, thank you very much. What I tell people all the time, if you hear something, say something. Don't be afraid. They're not going to give out your name. If you're afraid to report it, call me, I'll report it for you. But we have to, the community need to realize that it's up to the whole to help. City council can't do it all. Your organization can't do it all. The people as a whole, we all have to come together and help. The new LED lighting, and someone thought that those were cameras being put in the community. And he was telling people, oh, they're putting cameras. I said, no, that's lighting to make the community safer. Don't tell people it's cameras, because then they'll start shooting them out if they're doing illegal drug trafficking. Then there are those that are blaming the council for not doing anything. We can't do anything if we don't know about it. And we also need additional police officers. The police officers we have can't be everywhere. And they're doing a great job as it is. We just need more help. So I want the community to realize that we need them. We have all these community organizations, crime watch organizations, but they don't report anything. They just sit at home and talk to other people, gossip about it, instead of helping solve it. I hear shots all the time. And someone might call and say, did you hear those shots? Where are they coming from? Well, if you know where they're coming from, report it. I don't mind you calling me and telling me about it, and I'll report it. But that's the only way we're going to stop these killings and all this shooting, because it's really getting out of hand. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your support.
Chair recognizes Councilman Schofield.
Thank you again for coming, and thank you for extending the invite for me to come to the last ceasefire rally. Something I stated and talked with you there was, this all starts with us within. It takes a village. It's been said for years. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to fix a problem. One entity, whether it's your entity or the city council or another organization, cannot do it alone. We all have to band together to do it. the majority of the violence is occurring from children in ages from anywhere from 12 to 20 years old. So we've really got to focus on being able to provide to those children the big brother or the uncle that we all had as mentors as children. We all had neighbors that we thought of as second fathers and third father figures, and we've really got to get back to those standards. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or statement? If not, to Reverend Woodbury, thank you, but also thank the whole organization. I do want to recognize too with the Ceasefire USA, a Ceasefire Zone, Antoine Williams, who was the owner of Nubian Brothers. So I want to be sure to recognize him, because he's one of the founders who brought that to us here. And for those who you want more information, you're welcome to contact Reverend Woodbury, but you also can look up Ceasefire USA. And know that when it comes to ceasefire zones or activity, you've heard a lot of the various council members make statements. Long and short, in order to prevent violence, keyword prevent, a lot of things that we may do right now when everyone think of the police, that is what we call being retroactive. You're going back to that. I would encourage us, we have our community associations. A lot of our community associations are growing older. So I would make a plea for the public. You can contact the city, get a list of the community association, a list of the community watch. That is where it starts, having the community members come together. One of the things that differ now is a lot of people don't even know who their neighbors are. We have got to know who is in our community. And if there is an issue, how can we help our neighbor? I have a group now that I've been meeting with. It's a part of the Mayor's Youth Initiative. These individuals come from various organizations, community members, as well as mentors, because it's only when we as individuals step up and see what we could do, that's the only way we're going to have change. I often tell people you can have more police officers, but a police would not be standing there when someone gets angry and choose to pull a gun rather than to speak or walk away. Prevention starts with self-discipline. But not only that, when you have a high level of poverty, you have got to meet people's basic needs so they can be comfortable and not feel so angry. We know that South Carolina usually lead, we usually always in the top 10 for what? Domestic violence. So even with that, we have got to address some basic human issues. Because the average person, when they kill someone on the spot, it's not because they're thinking, well, I'm in this area, I might get more time. They act usually out of anger or vengeance. So I thank you, Reverend Woodbury and the organization, for bringing this part of a solution to a table that we already have. And we're looking forward to see what else we can do to help with this issue. And all of the various activity, it was an honor to be there. And when I spoke at the last one, I told people, for me, this is personal. When I spoke at your last event, I even made the statement, I just had a family member within that past week was a victim of gun violence. And that we spoke that Saturday, and we had his funeral that coming up week. So just that week was just a very odd week. So I know, for me, gun violence is personal. I spoke to the fact that one of the earliest incidents of gun violence for me was when my mother's brother was murdered, unarmed and murdered. So for me, this is not political, this is not organization, it's personal. And if I could have changed it when I was a little girl after my uncle got killed, I would have. And he was murdered, unarmed and murdered. So for anyone who's been a victim or family, my heart's with you. And anything that we can do to truly prevent some other families from going to this, I would love to work with you. So thank you once again for coming before us.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor and Council, for this opportunity. Have a great day.
You too. So at this time, we have completed our appearances before council. We were moving to now our ordinance in position, and we will give everyone a brief time period to leave the chambers. So. So at this time, we are moving to ordinance in position. First, we have Bill number 2021-33 for a second reading. It's an ordinance to enter into a development agreement between the City of Florence and the developers of the Bluff at Mill Creek and Zone RG-3, a residential general 3 pending annexation, 106 acres located at Redbud Lane and House Spring Road, identified as Florence County Tax Map Parcel 00152-01-021, and authorizing the city manager to execute all documents associated therein. Do we have a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that the bill has passed. Next, we have Bill number 2021-34 for a second reading. It's an ordinance to rezone 257 North Court Street from UR Urban Residential to DS Destination Select Users, identified as Florence County Tax Map Parcel number 90073-05-005. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Pat Gibson Moore.
Okay, with this second reading, I'm not opposed to the zoning because we made the mistake. I am opposed to what will be going there. So I'm going to stand on my principle of the same way I voted last time, because we don't need a tobacco store in the neighborhood. There's a convenience store right directly next to it, and they sell all the tobacco you need. So that's the only reason that I'm against this, not because of the zoning, but because of what will be going in that area, that store.
Is there any discussion? And I would just simply state, I will be voting for the zoning because that's what the zoning is. And as for what will be going there, it's my understanding that's potentially what will be there. But if so, I'm a nurse, so I don't support smoking, but I do support business. So are there any other discussion? Chair recognizes Councilman McCall.
Again, I disagree. I stand with Pat. I disagree with what's been placed there. However, I understand the zoning change was kind of an error, so that's why I'm voting in favor of it, because of the error.
Okay. Any other discussion? And I'll just make it clear that when we're voting to all the public, we're simply voting on placing the zoning on that property that was on the property. So we're not changing, we're simply, due to the rhythms, when they did the rezoning, it was placed in another zone. So we're simply placing it back in its original zoning. We're not voting for the business that will go there. We're voting for the zoning that will go there. And if that's clear and we all agree, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign.
No.
Let it reflect in the records that Bill number 2021-34 has passed, second reading. Next up for our second reading is Bill number 2021-35. It's an ordinance to rezone 802 Cherokee Road and 806 Cherokee Road, 812 Cherokee Road, and 810 Congaree Road from NC-6-1 to NC-6.3, identified as Florence County Tax Map Parcel number 90064-11-006, 90064-11-007, and 90064-11-013, and 90064-11-012.
So moved.
It's been motion. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And any opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that Bill number 2021-35 has passed second reading. Next, we're into introduction of ordinance. First, we will have Bill number 2021-12, and on that, you may notice that this is asked to be deferred. And we will defer at the request of the applicant, and this will be coming up for review probably in November, so the council be aware. And so if there's no objection, this bill is deferred. Next, we have Bill number 2021-37 for a first reading. It's an ordinance to declare surplus and donate a portion of city-owned property located at Florence County Tax Map Parcel 700 12-20-002 in Timorsville, South Carolina to Florence County for the Timorsville Rescue Squad. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, so we have motions and second. Okay, at this time, we'll hear from Deputy City Managers, Mr. Scotty Davis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As stated, we have an ordinance to declare surplus and to donate a portion of the property, city-owned property located at tax map 700-12-20-002 in Timorsville to Florence County for the Timorsville Rescue Squad. The city of Florence received this property when we acquired the Timorsville utility system. A portion of the property sits on, or the Timorsville Rescue Squad sits on a portion of the property. It's approximately 0.48 acres. The city has no use for the property. We have no utilities in the area. All of those things have been checked by our engineers and utility department. We have spoken with Florence County. They are receptive to having the property donated to the county, and the county, Florence County, will then in turn donate the property to the Timorsville Rescue Squad.
Okay. Is there any discussions or questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that the bill number 2021-37 has passed first reading. Next, and thank you, Mr. Davis. At this time, we have bill number 2021-38 for first reading. It's an ordinance to rezone 517 West Sumter Street from NC-6.2 Neighborhood Conservation 6.2 to CBD Central Business District, identified as tax map number 90072-07-001. At this time, do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. At this time, we are here for Mr. Jerry Dudley.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. If we can get the PowerPoint pulled up here. There we are. Here's our vicinity map. This is on the corner of Chase Street and West Sumter Street. And here's a closer look. You can see the lot is currently vacant. The current zoning of the property is a residential NC 6.2, and as you can see, it's surrounded completely by residential properties. The future land use is also of residential neighborhood conservation use, and here's some pictures showing that is just simply a grassed and lot with a few trees on it. Here's some pictures also showing the character of the developed streetscape, showing residential structures in this area. The request is to zone Central Business District, which would be kind of an isolated occurrence of that embedded in this community. It is staff's opinion that this does meet the definition of spot zoning, and as such, city staff is not recommending this rezoning, and Planning Commission at their September 14th meeting also recommended unanimously to deny this rezoning of this property. So.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley. At this time, the chair will not recognize Pro Tem Bailey.
I want to thank the Planning Commission and thank city staff for their diligence in addressing and identifying and addressing the spot zoning, quote-unquote spot zoning issues as they arise. I think we've seen a history of spot zoning where businesses are pop up in the middle of a neighborhood, and we see the effects over time that can have on neighborhood. It's one thing if there's already an existing business there. We've addressed that a number of times already, recently in the past, but this is taking a vacant lot that really should be a residence, another residential home, and taking that lot and converting it to commercial, which would, in my opinion, have a very serious negative impact on the community. So I'm going to support the Planning Commission as well as city staff in opposing the spot zoning in this situation and changing it. And I just want to thank you, city staff, and the Planning Commission. And please pass that along to the Planning Commission for their diligence. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Barnes.
Okay, I received a phone call from one of the residents, and they sent me pictures because the business the potential business is kind of operating with a food truck and cars and stuff there, and the traffic was horrible. Kids walking. She called me because a child almost got hit by a car, and so I too will be supporting the recommendation because I saw firsthand with the pictures. It is not a good place for that to happen.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Dudley, thank you for that report, and I also thank zoning for that. As you know, Sumter Street is actually one of the catalytic areas for community development. This is a street that we quite recently, a couple of years back, placed close to $1 million in order to increase and improve the aesthetics. It's actually the location also of Old Carver Station, which is a few blocks down, as well as the RN Beck's Early Learning Center. I'm very familiar with Sumter Street. That's where I was born. And when it comes to the events that was referred to, I went through when this was occurring. I witnessed that there was cars actually double parked in the street. And so this is good that the commission voted that we should not do this, because this is residential. This is what we're looking at when we're talking about neighborhood, conservation. That's conserving the appearance of a community, making this a place where when someone come home from work, they come home into their homes. So it's great that we do not allow this, because when you buy into a community for your residential area, you should feel comfortable knowing that it would remain a residential area. So I compliment the staff as well as the commission for recognizing this and being sure that we maintain our neighborhood conservation. So thank you. Is there any other discussion? Our chair recognizes Councilman Braddock.
Madam Mayor, with this lot being used like y'all referenced, is there any ordinance or fine or procedure that can stop that type of behavior on that lot in the future?
Well, the city manager addressed, but when when it happened, I did make contact. I know that weekend that we did have officers who went out to that site, and they did communicate with the individual who was operating there. But I'll let the city manager give you full details.
Well, you're absolutely correct, Mayor. Through our codes division, we do have the ability to enforce our zoning requirements, or in this particular case, the misuse of the lot during the event. Not only at the time, but our codes enforcement officers have already reached back out to the owner of the property to basically advise them that although it can't be a food truck place, it almost appeared as if there was an attempt to turn it into a venue type location, which also would not be allowed in this zoning. So we have informed them, and they're on notice.
Are there any other questions or discussions? If not, all right. All those that are in favor of passing the ordinance for the rezoning, please signify by saying aye.
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay. So all those who
Try it again.
well, at least I know you're ready to speak up. So at this time, all those who are opposed to the passing of this bill, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Let the record reflect unanimously that bill number 2021-38 has not passed first reading. So at this time, we will have bill number 2021-39 for first and final reading. It's an emergency ordinance to replace the existing emergency ordinance 2021-30 in response to the COVID-19 emergency. Do we have a motion?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Are you ready for a discussion?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, we got two. I'm gonna go with the okay.
Oh, no, I just said yes.
You said yes. Okay. Chair recognizes me, Pro Tem.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity for us to address this matter and to look at where we were in September and where we are now. And I think that's very, very important that we take a look at the measures that we've had in place and the effects that they've had. And I had asked our city manager to pull up and see if he could track down and pull up the numbers from the CDC And Mr. City Manager, it looks like he's calling on Jerry.
Just have it added to the screen.
All right, thank you. And I think there are some handouts that kind of mirror that.
Yes, sir.
So what we see in front of us is a chart from the Center for Disease Control, and this is a chart of Florence County. And if you look at the graph, the height on the graph up and down is the number of cases, and the bottom line on the graph is a timeline. And the timeline begins in March, closer to April of 2020, and extends all the way through to the current. And the numbers that are reflected on there are the average active cases, and that's different than a new case report every day. The DHEC as well as CDC tracks the active cases, and that's if someone has reported yesterday that they were tested positive, then until the timeline extends and ends for their time where they are COVID positive, they are still considered an active case. And so you can have one person today and one person tomorrow who are reporting as positive, and so the total active cases, even though it was only one the next day, the total active cases would be 2 because it would include the one from the day before. The interesting thing, if we look at it, is the timing of when we started the Vaccinate Florence campaign. And we put the recommendations for the mask wearing, we put the recommendations and encouraging people to get vaccinated. All of those processes, and under the leadership of Councilman McCall and his committee with the Public Relations and Marketing Committee, started the Vaccinate Florence campaign. And if you see the peak that was there, it looked, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. City Manager, I believe it's around September the 21st is that where that peak is located. Is that what that shows on your computer?
Roughly, yes, sir.
Okay. And as I understand, we had our initial meeting where we recommended the resolution for vaccinations, and then we encouraging people to wear masks indoors was at the September 21 meeting. And the chart that we're looking at shows that at that time, in September of 2021, there was 1,357 active cases at that time. Is that what that shows on your screen there?
That is the number that appears.
Okay. And then what I'm most excited about, and I want to say congratulations to the City of Florence, is that we have seen, and this is numbers for all of Florence County, so not just the city, this is the numbers for all of Florence County, is we have seen a very steep and steady decline in the number of active cases from the middle of September through last week to now. The most current number, if I'm not mistaken, is 141 active cases. Is that right?
That is the number on the website, yes, sir.
Okay. So we have gone from September of 2021 of 1,357 active cases down to early November, the first week in November, of 141 new active cases. So I want to take this time and this opportunity to tell our citizens of the City of Florence and all of Florence County, thank you. Thank you so much. Congratulations, you're doing the right thing. Continue to do the right thing. In addition to I'm not quite finished with that.
Turn it off.
So it sort of disappeared, but now
It's over there.
So in addition to that, what we have seen is a significant increase in the number of vaccinations, and there is a cause and effect. We have seen vaccination rates go from less than 50% to, for all of Florence County, well in excess of 63%. And so the numbers are rising. People are getting vaccinated, getting boosters, voluntarily choosing to wear masks when indoors, just like we're doing here at this council meeting today. And what we know, though, is that Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's is coming up. And that's the big concern. And what we know from last year, if we look at that graph again, starting in October, the numbers started to rise. And they were going up all throughout October into November, and then they really skyrocketed into December. Of course, last year we did not have the vaccinations available. We had very limited access to texting. We had limited access to masks. So many of the tools that we currently have were not as available and accessible a year ago. What I'm particularly pleased with is that looking at the CDC's projections, and those are those 4 dots to the right-hand side, the projections call for they continuing to drop in the number of active cases, which is very, very encouraging. It shows that the first dot closest to where we currently are of 141 active cases shows that a week from now they're projecting at 100 cases. 2 weeks from now they're projecting it to be 85 cases. 3 weeks from now 77 active cases, and 4 weeks from now, a month from now, 76 cases. Are my numbers that I'm repeating here correct, Randy?
That is what shows up, yes, sir.
Okay. So what that says is that congratulations, Florence. You're doing the right thing, even to the point that the CDC is projecting the numbers to continue to go down over the next month. That is very encouraging, and I want to congratulate our community having embraced what we put the challenge to everybody. We put the challenge out there, and our Florence community has taken that challenge, embraced that challenge, and has taken action. And I want to congratulate and say, well done, Florence. In that regard, though, we cannot sit on our laurels. We cannot just sit and expect and not keep a close, watchful eye on this, because people's health, well-being in the community is potentially at risk. So what I'm going to propose is that we defer any ruling today. What we have in place is working. We see it working. And we have further on in our agenda is a resolution for encouraging everyone to test before they gather as a part of the Vaccinate Florence campaign that's going on. And hopefully we will continue to see positive results from our community, that these numbers will continue to go down as projected. But in the event that it doesn't, in the event that we see a spike like we saw in 2020, then I think we're going to be poised and in position to take action that we are paying very close attention. So I move at this time to defer this ordinance. Excuse me, Madam Mayor. I move at this time to defer the hearing, the motion for this ordinance until we go forward, so that'll be on next week's
Point of
agenda.
order, before we move to deferring, is there any other statement or questions?
No, ma'am, I think the,
We don't have-
I believe Robert's Rules of Order say if there's a motion to defer, that the motion, we see if there's a second, and that is the correct Robert's Rules of Order. If there's a second.
I
There's-
second.
Okay, we have a motion in a second. Any discussion? Discussion?
Okay, at our October meeting, we said that the goal was to reach 70% vaccination rate. We have not reached 70%. So then we do need to go ahead and continue our existing emergency ordinance until we are not at that 70%. And with the holidays coming, there could be an incline instead of a decline. So I think that we should keep this ordinance, emergency ordinance. People still aren't doing everything they need to.
And I-
We're not at that 70% that was talked about over and over again at our October meeting.
There's a resolution that will.
Before we, no,
Just to
No.
clarify what Councilwoman Barnes has said.
No, at this time,
There's a
you're out of order.
resolution. Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
no, you're out of order.
But would you
You're
like to
out.
explain that there's a
You're out of
resolution
order.
pending?
You're out of order. First
Would
of
you
all,
like to explain that,
before you
please?
take the floor, you need to be recognized.
Would you like to
So
explain
at
that?
this time, do you have any other statement?
No, I just want, basically, I'm saying that I'm for keeping our ordinance as it is now.
Okay.
Now-
We haven't reached that 70% that we talked about at our last meeting.
All right. Now, at this time, I'm going to just make a statement of clarification. I do want us to note that we have bill number, present now, bill number 2021-39 for a first and final reading, but also for the general public, I do want you to know that we still have another resolutions that will be coming up to recognize or to address our emergency ordinance number 2021-30. So we do have two different resolutions in place.
Thank you.
And so one is for, and just so we'll be understanding, the first one, what we own now is 2021-39. That's actually a bill to implement mass ordinance throughout the whole of the city in public areas. Understand that. So in public areas such in your restaurants, your businesses, that is what this ordinance is addressing. The ordinance that will be coming up later will be addressing continuous ordinance within our city properties, such as when you're entering these buildings or you're going into our centers. So in other words, the one that's coming up later will address the city as an individual business. Just as right now, any business within the city or county, they can elect to put in place a mass ordinance in their business. So this right here is for public, and so I wanted that point to be clearly noted. Are there any other statement recognizing Chair Councilwoman Barnes?
One of the reasons that I would like to support the resolution that's coming up before us is, one, it was on the agenda for us to deal. I think that when we go before the people of Florence, we need to go with one message, a concise message, and not be divided. And so on Friday, I see that it was something else added. And one of the things, 2 weeks ago, I sent out a message to all of my nephews and nieces, before you come home, because we're gonna be sitting around eating. You're gonna come home and go to grandmama and auntie, and you're hanging out. So this test, I told them 3 days before you come to my house, because my house is the gathering spot, you need to test, even the younger kids. So even if we do a mass mandate, it will do nothing for us gathering in our homes with our kids. Holiday gathering will be for families, and families will take the mask down. And so if we test and we push the vaccine, we have a larger success rate than if we say a mass mandate that we wouldn't be able to actually mandate in someone's home or in their personal business. If the business say, I'm okay with them coming in, there's nothing we can do about that. The only thing legally we can do is the city building that we own. So I think that it would be better if we go forth with one message, because when I got up this morning, I saw front page, mass mandate on the agenda, which now takes the attention from test before you gather, and that's all that they will see. So while I am 100% behind masks and wearing masks, I would like for us to not have two things that we're warring with to move forward.
Okay. And I do want to clarify with the numbers too, that we've got our report there. I do want to let us know from our local standpoint, according to our South Carolina DHEC, as of 11:59 Saturday, November the 6th, our numbers for Florence County, not for the city, but for Florence County, we had 200 active cases, with 10 new cases for a cumulative total of 26,789 in Florence County, with 2 new deaths. So those are our latest numbers as of with Saturday. And for me, I don't want to go into a long, drawn-out statement. Long and short, regardless of how we go, I will be, voting for masks, because that's one of a 4-pronged treatment. Your mask, still your social distancing, and still you're washing your hand. But most importantly, we're still for your vaccine. That's a national push there. So regardless of what, no matter how we try to address this from a medical standpoint of view, 4 prongs, and I will always support 4 prongs. Because when you get a vaccination, understand that a vaccine simply decreases the effects of the disease. The vaccine does not stop the transmission of the disease. Remember, I always tell you, I wear my mask a lot around people. Now I go to see my senior brothers and sisters, I wear a mask. I've had my 3rd booster, but I can still get COVID, and I could be just as healthy as I am sitting here. And if you've not been vaccinated, and I'm not wearing my mask, I can literally talk to you because I'm healthy. And when I leave you, I've now created you to be positive. And if you have not had your vaccine, or you're high risk or immune compromised, I've just given you something that can put you on a ventilator or either kill you. So for me, when you hear me talking, I will always, regardless of what, for your own protection, wear your mask. When it comes to coming up on the holidays, it's been stated, and I know you've seen on the national level that yes, more families will probably be coming together, but a lot of people are asking their family, have you been vaccinated? And if you're not, don't come. Mm-hmm. And so there are things that we as individuals can do to help this decrease the transmission of this disease. And for me, with this mask, that's all everyone is asking you to do. And regardless of what, there are going to be some people who will not wear their mask. I don't care if we put mask mandates for it or not. There's some who will not. But that still does not change the fact that when you do not get your vaccine, if you don't wash your hands, if you don't continue to separate some social distancing and wear your mask, you are a weak link that's going to help this disease to continue to progress. So that is all I want to say, and I really hope we don't have to keep going over and over. This is the fact of the matter, and I hope that if we have to bring this back again, simply vote it up and down, because we're not going to all agree. We're going to have to learn to agree to disagree. And as the healthcare person, I'm going to always encourage you to do the full-prong approach. And I know that everybody won't, but I will always encourage us to do so. The chair now recognizes Pro Tem Bailey.
And I join with you in encouraging everyone to do the same thing and to take that 4-pronged approach. And I think, Councilwoman Moore, we have a resolution that's further down in the agenda, and that resolution is to extend what is currently in place for another 60 days. And that is certainly something that I support, that I fully anticipate our city council will fully support. Our city council has spoken clearly, unequivocally, collectively, and universally that we support encouraging people to wear masks. And this doesn't change any of that. In fact, Madam Mayor, you said with regard to guns that prevention starts with self-discipline. Well, I would totally agree with that. And self-discipline means wear your mask, make that right choice to wear your masks, make that right choice. So this, by voting to defer, it does not change or undermine what we're going to be doing later to extend what is currently in place and to keep what is currently in place going forward, and that's with a resolution that is coming up below, resolution number 2021-42. What this does is it defers to next meeting a potential mask mandate as opposed to the encouraging and the self-discipline. So that's what I'm proposed, is to defer so that we can say, congratulations, City of Florence, you're doing the right thing. The numbers are moving in the right direction. Vaccinations are going up. Continue to do so. Our Vaccinate Florence campaign is working, and I encourage us to speak with one voice to say, get your vaccines, get your boosters, wear your masks, sanitize with your hands, wash your hands, do the right things, test before you gather. All of those things that we know work so well. Congratulations on you doing it now. Continue to do it as we go forward. And I'd call the question at this time.
I have another statement.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman.
Okay, you're asking to vote to defer, you're asking to defer. So what are we doing? Deferring to see how many more people get sick and die before we do anything? Is that what we're deferring to do? The more you put things off, you're looking for the negative impact so you can decide what to do. I don't want to defer to see how many more people are going to die. I'd like to try and help people stay alive.
We have a motion now at this time with a second to defer. All those in favor of deferring Bill number 2021-39, please signify by showing of hands so I can give us a count. All those in favor of deferring, please.
Aye.
Let it reflect that we have 5 hands in favor of deferring. All those like sign, show of hand, please. Let it reflect that Bill number 2021-39 has, for first and final reading, has been deferred. And as stated, I heard the referral to next month. So at this time, we are entering into introduction of resolutions. Now we have resolution number 2021-38, and it's a resolution to proclaim Friday, December 3rd, 2021 as Arbor Day in the city of Florence. At this time, we will hear from Chuck Pope.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. This resolution before you is an annual event. It is to proclaim Friday, December the 3rd as Arbor Day in the city of Florence. If so approved, we will also plan to hold on December the 3rd our annual Arbor Day planning. And this year, if approved, that will take place at the fire station. The new fire station, we'll plant a nice big tree at the new fire station on Smith Drive.
All right. You've heard the resolution. Do we have a motion?
I so move.
And a second?
Second.
So the motion is second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
And opposition, like sign. Let it reflect that resolution number 2021-38 has passed. Next we have...
Mayor, just
Yes,
as information too, this past Thursday, the Forestry Commission was in town and awarded to the Parks and Beautification Commission, which goes to the City Council, of course, our Tree City USA Award. Is the city's 41st year being a Tree City USA. Along with that, they brought the Growth Award, and the Growth Award is our 16th year of receiving that, and that is, as Reverend Woodbury was talking about earlier, you win that award because of the sustainability urban forest that you're creating within your community or town. So just wanted to let y'all know that as well.
I would say thank you, Mr. Pope, and it's a great honor to continue to have that. I think that's a legacy that with trees that this city has, and I really think too with Evans Street here with the beautification, those trees really brings a different beauty to that side. So thank you, and thank you to the Park and Recreation Department for all that y'all are doing to help keep the city beautiful. Thank you. So at this time, we have resolution number 2021-39. It's a resolution by the City of Florence recognizing November as Native American Heritage Month. And at this time, do we have a motion?
So, second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that resolution number 2021-39 has passed. Thank you, council. At this time, we have resolution number 2021-40. It's a resolution strongly encouraging residents to vaccinate against COVID-19 and to test for COVID-19 before they gather with their friends and family for the holidays. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion to second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Let it reflect that resolution number 2021-40 has.
Read it into the record.
has-
The resolution, read the resolution to the record.
You're welcome to do so.
Sir. This is resolution number, excuse me, my voice is a little raspy. I was at the Gamecocks game Saturday, and we beat Florida. Go Gamecocks. I'm sorry, Michael Hemingway. All right, resolution number 2021-40. Whereas the city of Florence is greatly concerned about the health and public safety of its residents and is diligently working to continue reducing COVID numbers in the community. And whereas the city of Florence, in partnership with Florence County, MUSC Health, McLeod Health, and Hope Health, has united in a vaccination campaign for the Florence community, encouraging that all eligible residents get the COVID-19 vaccine. And whereas the CDC and DHEC strongly recommend vaccination as the first defense against the deadly virus, but also are promoting to test before you gather, to ensure you have the confidence of being virus-free prior to gathering with family and friends. And whereas the CDC and DHEC has also provided a list of guidelines in anticipation of upcoming gatherings of family and friends to limit exposure during the holiday season, that includes the following: vaccinate before the holiday season, celebrate outside or wear masks at crowded indoor events, consider virtual celebrations and gift exchanges, maintain social distancing at least 6 feet, test before you gather at holiday parties with family and friends. If you have symptoms or tested positive in the last 10 days, or have been exposed to COVID-19 and told to quarantine in the last 14 days, do not attend holiday gatherings. Whereas together we can ensure the health and safety of family and friends by following precautions set forth by the CDC and DHEC during the holiday season, and continue to reduce COVID-19 numbers in our area. And now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Florence, South Carolina. The City of Florence encourages residents to follow guidelines provided by the CDC and DHEC as we approach holiday season. The city strongly recommends vaccination as a first defense, and everyone to test before you gather to ensure the safety of your family and friends during the holiday season. Resolved this 8th day, November 2021.
Thank you, Councilman, for that reading. Chair recognizes Mayor Pro Tem.
I want to congratulate the committee chaired by Councilman McCall, working with city staff to develop this resolution and to promote this continuing campaign, which is this working together with Florence County, the City of Florence, McLeod, MUSC, and Hope Health to get the message out there of how important this is. And we would, and I just feel like this is a very important next step, the test before you gather, in our continuing effort. So I want to congratulate the committee, congratulate the city staff on this. Thank you.
Any other comments before we move on? Once again, thank you for everyone who's listening to the CDC. And may we continue to do our best to do our part to prevent the spread of this disease called COVID-19. So thank you again, and we can only be responsible for the things that we do. So thank you for your individual efforts and all that you've done. If you had not had your vaccine yet, I will encourage you to not only get that, but whatever concerns you may have, please reach out to any of these medical institutions, and I'm pretty sure they will give you all the materials that you would need to understand the vaccine. And I do want to iterate that I know sometimes people have a concern, have thought that the vaccine was a live virus. You know that you will not be given the live virus. So please, if you need information, please get that and help each other so that we can all survive this pandemic. Thank you again to everyone who played a part in putting together the resolution. Thank you especially to all of our medical institutions here in Florence. I would like to say we have fine medical facilities here, which means we have some of the leading minds when it comes to medicine. So I would encourage you to listen to them when it comes to your vaccines, wearing your mask, and washing your hands, and also safe distancing, because the holidays are coming up, and it is projected that during the holidays we expect the numbers to go back up. So once again, thank you, and thank you for the resolution being read into the records. At this time, we will move forward with resolution number 2021-41. And it's a resolution to allow the city of Florence to lease city-owned properties located at 719 Walnut Street to the PD West Community Action Agency Partnership as a part of their homeless prevention program. Do we have a motion?
Second. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we defer this resolution to get further information.
I'll second. All those in favor of deferring this resolution till we seek further information, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Resolution number 2021-41 will be deferred while they seek out some additional information. I think there was a
Madam Mayor, I
question.
have a question.
Sure.
I'm not made
I wanted
aware
to
of the
hear.
basis of it. I mean, can we at least hear from Mr. Davis as to what this resolution is about?
What the resolution is simply this, what we have here. We have been leasing out a property on Walnut Street to PD Community Action Agency Partnership for their homeless program. And this will allow us to go and to actually get ready to renew the agreement, but there's some more information that's gonna be needed for the agreement. So that's what it was asked to be for.
Madam Mayor?
Chair, I'm gonna ask the council, understand, rather than going into this deep discussion, to allow the staff to get the information that they need so they can bring it back to, so we have the whole of it. There's some missing links out of the information, and that's what's occurring.
So this is a recommendation from staff to defer?
Yes, I've actually talked to, ahead of time. So we just need to defer to get some more information. And when they obtain that information, it will allow this council to make an informed decision.
All right, it just wasn't noted
Yeah.
that it was a recommendation from staff.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
and really, if there was some, some things that's last minute stuff that came up, that is why.
Okay.
And if afterwards, if you're welcome, I'll gladly, talk with you and share more of what, I have to be able to share with you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have resolution number 2021-42. It's a resolution pursuant to section 10 of the emergency ordinance number 2021-30 to extend the emergency terms and application of said ordinance by an additional 60 days.
So
And
moved.
Second.
okay, it's been properly motion and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that resolution number 2021-42 has passed first reading. Next, we have resolution number 2021-43, a resolution of the City Council approving the downtown redevelopment grant for the second quarter of fiscal year 2022. This resolution, as noted, will be discussed in our executive session. Next, we have.
Madam
Yes,
Mayor,
sir.
excuse me, may we go back so I can read into the record the resolution 2021-42,
Hold on one minute.
which we just, the 60-day extension.
Sure, go right ahead and
Thank
read
you,
the
ma'am.
records.
Resolution, and this is what we just voted on, Resolution 2021-42, that I had made reference to earlier with regard to Councilwoman Moore, that it's a resolution pursuant to Section 10 of the ordinance of 2021-30 to extend the emergency term and application of said ordinance by an additional 60 days. Number one, incident to adoption of resolution, City Council reiterates and adopts the findings of fact set out in ordinance number 2021-30 and specifically finds that the emergency situation created by the 2019 novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic situation continues to exist. Number two, City Council adopts this resolution authorizing the extension of the emergency term and the provisions established by ordinance number 2021-30. Now therefore, based on the findings of fact referenced and set out above, it is hereby resolved that the mayor and the city council of the city of Florence, South Carolina, as follows. The city hereby declares that the emergency situation created by the 2019 novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic continues to exist and therefore hereby extends the emergency term established by ordinance number 2021-30 for an additional 60 days. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for that reading into records. And when it comes to reports to council, Mr. Frank Rainwater has already presented, and we will hear further information in our executive session from our council, during the executive session, Councilor Peterson. And at this time, we will have appointments to boards and commission. We will call for Mr. Scotty Davis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. We have coming before us 4 boards and commissions that have either vacancies or expired terms. Our first board is the Board of Zoning Appeals. There are actually 2 positions, 1 expired term and 1 vacancy. Mr. Randolph Hunter has resigned his position on the board. We have council members McCall and Councilwoman Barnes making appointments today. Seeking reappointment is Mr. Nathaniel Poston. We also have new applicants, Mr. Nathaniel Mitchell and Mr. Michael Tommy Phillips. And again, our first appointment falls to Councilman McCall.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to appoint Nathaniel Mitchell.
We've heard the recommendation coming from Councilman McCall as a motion. Do we have a second?
Recommend.
Okay, if the motion is second, that Mr. Mitchell be appointed. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, like sign. Let the record reflect that Mr. Mitchell has been appointed.
Our next appointment goes to Councilwoman Barnes.
I'd like to defer.
Councilwoman Barnes is deferring.
Our next board is the Construction and Maintenance Board of Adjustment and Appeals. We have 2 vacancies on that board. Both appointment, we have requirements that the appointees are an engineer and a mechanical contractor. We do not have any qualified applicants for this board, and the nominations falls to Madam Mayor.
And I would defer based on there's no applicants at this time.
Our next board is our Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee. There are 6 seats to be filled on this board. We have members making appointments: Councilwoman Barnes, Councilman McCall, Mayor Irving, Councilwoman Moore, Councilman Braddock, and Pro Tem Jabali. We have 1 applicant for the seat. That's Reverend Leo Woodbury, and he would be serving as a representative from a conservation or environmental organization. And our first appointment falls to Councilwoman Barnes.
Pastor Leo Woodbury.
We have a motion from Councilwoman Barnes that Pastor Leo Woodbury be appointed. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying, if there's no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Hearing none, let the record reflect that Reverend Leo Woodbury has been appointed.
We do not have any others. Are there any other appointments from council? We did not receive anything. Generally, we ask that all applicants are filled out and received by staff by noon of the meeting.
So there's 5 seats still to be filled?
There will be 5 seats.
And council members, please, if you note on the application process, we have someone at this time who will be representing from our local energy company has been taken by Ms. Taylor, and then so represented from the Conservation Environmental Organization is the appointment that Mr. Reverend Leo Woodbury was appointed under. So do realize that we do have available seating for a local university, our college representative, and then also representative from our 3 districts, as well as 1 I think the layperson resident. Have we filled that?
I think we do have
we
that
filled
one
that one,
filled.
didn't we? I think we filled that one. So we do have individual representation that can come from the 3 districts, as well as a specialty seat from our local university, our college. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Now we have our Aesthetics Advisory Committee. There are 3 seats to be filled on this committee. We have Councilman McCall, Madam Mayor, and Councilwoman Moore. We do have an applicant, Ms. Letitia Jackson, and she will be serving designated as a 2-year term if selected. Councilman McCall.
At this time, I recommend Letitia Jackson.
Do we have a motion from Councilman McCall? Do we have a second?
Second.
So it's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Hearing none, let the record reflect that Ms. Jackson has been appointed. Thank you.
There are 2 additional seats to be filled. Currently, we have no new applicants.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all.
So at this time, we proceed with committee reports. First, we will have a report from our Business and Development Committee Chairperson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And on behalf of the committee for the Business Development Committee, I want to say thank you to everyone who participated in the 17th Annual South Carolina Pecan Festival. We had a whole lot of business taking place in downtown Florence on Saturday, November the 6th, despite the cold, despite the windy conditions, despite the intermittent rain that we had. And so to all the vendors that came out and opened up shop, to all of the businesses that were active and vibrant during the downtown, in downtown during the festival, we want to say thank you. And just to the community at large, I would like to remind everyone that the Pecan Festival annually has an economic impact of about $2.5 million a year. So the hotels, rooms are all jammed, the restaurants were busy, everybody was busy doing business, and hopefully, where's Kevin out there? Hopefully, Kevin, generating some accommodations tax dollars for you and some hospitality fees for you, so that you can get that over to Randy, so we'll have that in next year's budget. So,
Kevin was one of my volunteers.
and so I would also, I'm sure, join Councilwoman Moore to especially thank not only our volunteers, who are just amazing, but also the city staff that came out there. And I said something to Randy earlier today about that. It was cold, it was windy, it was blustery, and you had so many staff members that were out there of all the different crews, whether it was public works or sanitation or the police and fire, the city manager's office, manning the City of Florence tent. So many different departments were involved that make this happen, and we certainly could not do it without the City of Florence. So I would like to personally extend, on behalf of City Council, Randy, and I would hope you pass it along to all of city staff, our deep appreciation for everything that you all do and the City of Florence does to make that event such a special, special event, especially under such very difficult and challenging circumstances that we had. Thank you. The Business Committee met on October the 15th, and we had a very good discussion at that time, that looking at particularly at the approach to conduct a Florence market study for the city. And at that time, our city manager said he was going to discuss with Jerry Dudley, the planning director, with a potential focus on small to light industrial, commercial, and professional recruitment. We have a number of opportunities in our market to go out and to let people know what our city has available, and to try to do some active recruiting of businesses to come in. And so the study, I think, is, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. City Manager, that you are working with the Planning Department to try to conduct that study. Okay. And so we thank you for that. We also were informed by Michael Hemingway that there is a industrial project that the Florence County is working on, and he gave us a very short update on that, and we are appreciative of that update. And then there was another reference that was made. There's a site, an industrial site that's out near the airport that's called White Hawk. And questions were asked about the status of that site. And it's our understanding that as of right now, that site remains available, and there's not any current economic development options for that site. That's all that I have. I'll ask if any other council members who are part of that committee, if they would like to add anything else.
Thank you, Chairman, for that
Thank you.
report. And just want to follow, as for his business, do want to remind us that the City of Florence is working with several partners to continue to enhance our economic development, mainly our partners of the Florence County. It's not only Florence County, but also with representatives from our state. So know that the city is always actively being involved with industry, attracting that there. I love to make the statement, the county has the land and the city has the water. So we are a perfect partnership. So thank you again to our Business Development Committee for that report, and keep pressing forward to do all that we can to have businesses brought here and developed, not only in the city, but also in the county. Thank you for that. So at this time, we're here from and before we do leave, since this is the Business Development Committee about business, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that we have the founder of the Pecan Festival in our midst, Pat Gibson High Moore, who's been recognized on the state level. So again, thank you for having a vision to work with others to bring about this successful Pecan Festival, which is now recognized for South Carolina. So thank you for the vision that you had, but most of all, thank you for the willingness to share this project with others and bring others aboard. And you reflect and you show that teamwork is truly what makes things succeed. So thank you for being able to bring people together, co-founders and chairs and everything else. Thank you.
I really appreciate that, but I more so appreciate all the people that help make it possible each and every year. Because without them, it couldn't happen. Our Mayor Pro Tem is our sponsorship chair, and he went over the amount that he was supposed to raise this year, and we needed it because the cost of everything skyrocketed. And we have so many of our city and council members that volunteered over the weekend. Matter of fact, Lithonia Barnes, Councilwoman Lithonia Barnes volunteered. And of course, it's not the first time for Kevin. He was right there on time at 7 o'clock in the morning. And our mayor, of course, she did the welcome and the invocation open up. So it was great. And even the county did more this year. And I was really happy to see them out also. And it was a little the weather was a little blistering, George.
It was. But we got through it.
It was nice in the RV.
We made it. Grand Funk played. We got them done.
The RV and all of those performers on that main stage did a fantastic job.
Yes.
Once again, thank you, but I did not want to not recognize the founder, because not many people, I don't know if any other place you can say something about having the founder of such a big organization being a community activist and serving on a government board. So thank you, Councilwoman. We appreciate your leadership there. So at this time, we will recognize our Community Development Committee, and we will hear from our chairperson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to start off for actually it leaves business and goes into the community with our Save-A-Lot. I want to thank the past mayor and the council members that worked diligently on, and staff, oh my God, on making this happen in our communities. It means so much. I stood there and talked to several, like all of us are there in the stores, and we're talking to the community members, and they are excited. And so I wanted to go on and say thank you to all of you who made this happen for our communities. And on Thursday, we will be having a prayer a community prayer meeting. Chris, I'm glad you're here. If you're not doing anything, we put you on program to pray. But for all of the efforts that the staff and council have done, we pray that God's protection is there and that this place would prosper for our community. And so we'd like to welcome all of the community out. It's at 6 o'clock at Save-A-Lot, and Tim is just so excited because people are coming in, and it has given a really great boost of morale in the community, needed boost of morale. And so thank you. That I'll stop there. That's big enough.
Well, thank you, Chairwoman, for that report and acknowledgement. When it comes to the past committee, I will have to say that when former Mayor Wakila, I chair the Community Development Committee, and I'm thankful that this store took place. I remember when Tim did the legwork to get the land together, and I had the honor of meeting with him actually at my real estate office at that time. When he was starting to support fund the council, I spoke with him and told him the different things that the council member would look before approving. And I remember when the former mayor called me to speak with me to see what I thought about it. And it was a good idea because our goals and objective was to make sure that we have business development across the tracks. So that was a project that was key to bringing business development across the tracks of Florence. But not only that, during this time period, First Lady Michelle Obama had a study done that actually designated the areas of the North Florence area, East Florence, and part of Northwest as a food desert. And this study was recognized, came out through USC. So when we met and I talked with Tim, and then I would have to say that the city took Tim under our wings. Our former city manager, Drew Griffin, along with the staff, got Tim involved with Incubator, which also helped him to develop to be a productive business leader. So I will still say that the store itself was a partnership between the city and also the Palmetto Housing. So that store is a product of partnerships. And I was like, it's an honor to have chaired the Community Development and Redevelopment Committee to get the foundation to get that store in place. And so when I talk to Tim, he's always real grateful, acknowledging all that we did to make that happen. And I'm thankful to say that we now have a grocery store in an area that has not had a grocery store within walkability in years. And it's my sheer desire to see it succeed, and I hope Tim much success. But also I would like for us to look at that as an example of what we can do when we have partnerships. That store is a result of pure partnerships. It is a result also of giving people an opportunity to have ownership. When I think about the history, and I'm sure Tim would gladly tell you that there were some who did not think that this could be done or think that he could have done it. But it was done because of the strength of people and organizations coming together. And so I hope even as a city in the future that we work together to make things happen. Because individually, as an individual, it may be hard, but as a team, we can make just about anything happen. So thank you for that report, and I thank our past mayor, and I thank our past council, as well as our community development board who worked to make this happen. So thank you to everyone. So at this time, we're here from our Marketing and Public Relationship Committee, Chairperson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to first preference by saying, my great grandma always told me, the Lord working in mysterious ways. And, we had some fruitful conversations, and what the Lord did was take my voice from me. So her father told me to be quiet, right? So I think I've done just that. So I'm gonna be brief on our report, but our last meeting, we've got information from the city pertaining to the results of our vaccination campaign, and I think evidence can show that the cases are, ever since our last special meeting, the cases have dramatically decreased to where we're currently at now. Again, I think the citizens of Florence answered the challenge that we gave to them, and I think the city is going to continue to promote vaccination for the rest of the year. In addition to it, what we also voted on was to bring forth the resolution that was presented today to test before you gather. I'm thankful for council in this unanimous support of that resolution. And again, I think at this moment, the marketing committee is just focusing on making sure everyone vaccinate and make sure that we are making the citizens aware that we should test before we gather for the holidays. And again, my voice is going, so I'm gonna leave it at that. But that's our report at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at this time, we complete our committee reports and we prepare to go into our executive session. And if we have motion upon our executive session, we will be have the discussions of matter related to a proposed economic development project 30-4-7A5 and to receive legal advice on redistricting 30-4-70A21, A2. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We have returned from executive session, at which point we did not take any actions or no voting took place. So at this time, we have first item. Our item is for the matter related to a proposed economic development project number 30-4-70A5. Do you have?
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And next we have item B, in which we just received some legal advice in reference to redistricting, and we did not take any action or any votes. So if all hearts and minds are clear, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second, so it's noticed we adjourn.